quite all right. I was kind of hoping that we might get an extra councillor while we were waiting, but
Who's the fire actually?
tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
Ooh.
And hopefully we'll get Federica in a minute. So
Thinking maybe Ray or Martin might turn up because they would.
good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Personnel Committee. Just some housekeeping first. I would like to advise everyone present that if you hear a long continuous siren, this is the fire alarm. Please don't pack up your belongings. You should leave the building through the nearest and safest exit by the back of the office through the police stairwell. If the route's blocked, you should exit the building through the main marble staircase. When exiting the building, proceed up the ramp and turn right. All attendees should congregate at the rear of the top car park where a register will be taken. Wait until you are told it's safe to re-enter the building. If you're a councillor, we've added you to the register. If you're a visitor and haven't signed the register, please do so now. I believe we don't have any visitors with us this evening. Additionally, whilst the fire alarm is sounding, do not use the lift to exit the building. Can I please remind everyone to put your mobile phones on silent mode and put the phone away for the duration of the meeting, avoiding interference from your iPad or the microphone. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed on YouTube, and therefore when speaking, please remember to speak clearly. As the chair of the meeting, I have the discretion to terminate or suspend recording and live streaming if, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceeding of the meeting. Recording and live streaming of confidential items will also not take place. To alert me as the chair of the meeting that you would like to speak, please raise your hand and wait for me to call upon you before speaking. Please remember, if you leave the meeting for any reason, you will not be able to take part in the vote on the item that's being discussed at that time. Members of the public will be able to view the live stream of the meeting via YouTube. Can I request that when speaking, you make your points as succinct as possible to allow for the smooth running of the meeting? And can I also take this opportunity to remind you to be polite and treat each other with respect at all times? Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't have a copy of the agenda here. I just have the minutes. Previous meeting. Did you have an additional copy of the agenda? I can. Thank you very much. Giving me scrolling on my phone. Thank you very much. Have we received any apologies from any of the other councillors? I'm aware that Councillor Smith-Roberts is planning to be here at about 6:15. Yes, I think Councillor Deacon did send his apologies to me via WhatsApp. He couldn't make it, but it appears that he hasn't found a substitute. Moving on to item 2, any declarations of interest from the other councillors present? Welcome, Councillor Smith-Roberts. We are just into apologies, so yours were not needed. Well, needed. Thank you very much. Lovely. Any declaration of interest on the matters on the agenda? Thank you. Moving on to item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? Do I have any comments or amendments to make to them? Lovely. Do I have a proposer to accept the minutes as a true record? Thank you very much, Councillor Furman. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lees, all in favour of adopting the minutes? Unanimously carried. Thank you very much. Sign those and get those back to you. Item 4, a forward plan for the Personnel Committee. Would you like to have quickly run through what we've got left on the forward plan coming up?
Yeah, so you might have noticed that we did have to remove the training policy from this month's forward plan for this month's committee. That's because Brian is doing some work on that and it's going to be on the next personnel committee, which will also be accompanied by recruitment induction process, contracts of employment, criminal record checks policy, rehabilitation of offenders policy, the leave policy and the toil policy.
Very much. I know it's a stacked agenda for the next couple of meetings, so I think it's going to be the same pretty much every time. Very much. I have someone to propose that we note the forward plan. Councillor Smith-Roberts, a seconder. Councillor Lees, all in favour of noting the plan. Thank you very much for putting that together. It's nice to know what we've got looked to forward to at the next couple of meetings. Moving on to item 5, we are going to be looking at the social media policy. Who would like to present the report on that? Nikki, thank you very much.
So in terms of the policy, it's a new policy, but it's been developed from existing guidance in our employee handbook. So this policy outlines the responsibilities of our employees. But as a general rule, behaviour or any social networking or other internet site must be consistent with behaviour that we expect from employees within the workplace. Please note this is separate guidance to that's been prepared for those who manage the council's social media accounts. That was picked up by Councillor Smith-Roberts in our agenda setting. Yeah, they've got slightly separate guidance.
And I noticed it did cover the difference between people posting on their own profiles as themselves with their own right to express their own opinions, as opposed to posting as an employee and making themselves clearly identified as an employee. So I'm glad that was the distinction was in there, but the standard appeared to be essentially the same for both, that they should make sure that even in their personal lives, whilst being able to express themselves, making sure they don't bring the council into disrepute. That's my understanding of both of those elements. That there was a theme running through both. Smith-Roberts.
So from my point of view, really welcome this. I like the fact that we will have a separate one for those that manage our social media profiles and how we then engage and what we look to do from a comms perspective. I think this is really important so that all our employees understand, I guess, expectations of them, because actually you're judged in the outside world now as much as you are in in the workplace. And we saw that, I think, in relation to the race riots and everything, where companies took action on individuals who posted defamatory comments around others. So it is just about people being aware that, you know, if you're posting in those arenas, then it's not really private, is it? So I'm happy with this.
Do you have any other comments, questions? Councillor Furman.
Thank you. On page 4 of the report, I'm just underneath the comments for, well, the bullet points for the breach of copyright. It talks about making any other kind of comments or posts on social media, as an employee. And there's also a sentence within that paragraph that says, this is also true of liking or sharing these types of posts. I was wondering if we could perhaps change the wording to interacting to make it a bit clear. It includes any kind of digital interaction with social media posts.
You can do that with copy actions and yeah.
Other than that, I'm happy with it.
Very much. Any other additions to make or comments? No, that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to check the wording of what we're the recommendations. The recommendation is to consider the social media policy, and I'm assuming vote that we adopt it forthwith. Do I have a proposer to adopt the policy? Councillor Furman, seconded by Councillor Smith-Roberts. All in favour? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6, the fostering policy. Details up. Do I have any initial comments or feedback? Councillor Smith-Roberts.
I really welcome this policy and the support that we're going to give people. We know that in Somerset that we haven't got enough foster carers, and that we need to do all that we can to encourage people to either become foster carers or respite foster carers. So I think it's important for us as a local government organisation to show that how we'll support our staff if they want to go down that route into it, you know, and by actually even having this policy, we're saying that we're almost encouraging it in some ways, because it just gets those conversations started. So from my point of view, really welcome that actually the support that we will give individuals.
Very much. And can I just clarify, because I wasn't aware of this, and apologies that I didn't do my homework. What is the definition of kinship caring and how that differs?
So I did actually write about it.
Thank you. We were just good to clarify that.
So, it's a family and friends care arrangement. So it's when a child who cannot be cared for by their parents or another person with parental responsibility, they go to live with a relative, friend, or other connected person. So rather than somebody completely separate in a foster.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. That's really good. I'm really happy with the policy. I'm really happy that we're putting this forward and it's something that we're supporting. Do I have a proposer to this policy? Councillor Lees, seconder. Councillor Smith-Roberts, all in favour? Again, unanimous. Thank you very much. Following on from the fostering policy, we have the carers leave policy. Slightly slow internet, so bear with me. Would you like to run through the quick reports on this?
Yeah, it's just again new policy which has been developed from guidance within the employee handbook. You may be aware that some legislation came into place called the Carers Leave Act, and this provides employees with a day one right, so they don't have to have any service, to take unpaid time off to care for dependents who need long-term care. So this leave does require some notice, so it's not emergency time off for dependents, and also they don't have to be a family member, so it might be an elderly neighbour, for example, that's had a fall. It's not new for the council, but the policy is a bit more in depth than the guidance that we already have.
Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Just a quick question on this. I guess it may be down to each manager's discretion, or sorry if I've missed it. If an individual wanted to do time, like get paid the time back, so say they needed half day, they can take, obviously we're saying it's unpaid, would there be flexibility if they wanted to actually work those hours back, or would that just be classed as like another type of absence rather than care leave?
I guess I mean, are you thinking about reporting?
Yeah.
So I guess we would probably need to do that with the manager anyway, wouldn't we? Because we want to keep some sort of record, you know, of that. But there would certainly be that flexibility. We have sort of flexible working in place, and you know, people leave early or you know make up time a lot in terms of toil and things like that. So we could definitely do that, but I think we would be mindful that we need to keep a record of it, just to, you know, in terms of well-being of things.
Is the intent then that it can be taken in smaller chunks rather than taking a full week off?
You can take up to a week every 12 months, but I think it's half days or full days that you can take. So,
yeah, no, that makes sense, but it doesn't have to be a solid week block. No, that's really sensible.
So actually you might want half a day off a month to do something like a hospital appointment or something. So yeah.
That all sounds really good. Any other comments or questions on that one?
Sounds good.
We have a proposer for the policy. Councillor Fairman, sorry. I didn't notice your hand go up there for a second. Do I have a seconder? Oh, Councillor Lees. I think everyone's quite keen for this one. All in favour? Lovely. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8, the maternity, paternity and adoption policy. If you'd like to run through, just present the report, I catch up with my notes. That would be fab. Thank you.
This is an existing policy that wouldn't, I don't think it needs to be reviewed until June, but given how many we've got to do, we're doing it a little bit early. So maternity, paternity and adoption, we've made it as far as we could gender neutral. We've also added in neonatal leave, which you may or may not be aware that the Neonatal Care Leave and Pay Act was passed in 2023, and that will take effect in April of this year. So we've been able to implement this slightly early. And this neonatal leave section talks about employees who have a child that receives neonatal care for at least 7 consecutive days within the first 28 days after birth, and that's paid at a statutory rate. So other changes to the policy that we've made is they're legislative. So we've updated the protection from redundancy to be in place for at least 18 months as per legislation, and paternity leave can now be split into 2 one-week blocks rather than taken in chunk, and it can be taken any time within the first year after the child's birth.
I had a question on the paternity leave, and as obviously you said, you tried to make it as gender neutral and as inclusive as possible. I'm assuming that terming it as paternity leave is a statutory term, and that the bullet points under that, the eligibility criteria, is that the first point says to be the father of the child or married to the partner, or married to the mother of the child, or would be the partner of the child's mother, which I'm assuming would that then encompasses same-sex partnerships or those of a non-binary identity. Is that correct? But we just can't technically call it that because it is technically called paternity leave. Okay.
Quick question for me, and just checking my up to date, if my knowledge is probably not as up to date as it should be, is but maternity leave parents can, or parental can share, can't they? Yeah, so that actually if the person that's taking the maternity leave wants to get returned to work early, then they can give the weeks to the other parent, so that they can have the time off, isn't it? And it's just that employers have to talk to make sure that then there is that sharing nature. Perfect.
You have some guidance within the employee handbook on that, but not in policy yet. So
Any other questions on that policy? No, I'm all good as well.
Yeah.
Have a proposer to note the policy. Councillor Smith-Roberts, a seconder. Councillor Furman, all in favour? Thanks again for all your work updating all the legislative stuff. It's good to know it's being kept on top of. And then we move on to the expenses policy. Are you presenting on this one?
from me.
It's the last one from you. Okay.
So yeah, we've got some guidance in the employee handbook, but we just sort of put it into one policy, and it just talks about reimbursement of business expenditure and eye tests / VDU lenses. Obviously, the eye tests and the lenses are HSE guidance, and then in terms of the mileage, it just explains, the policy just explains what you're allowed to claim for, criteria and how you do so, and professional memberships as well in there. So anybody that has a professional membership as part of their role, then and that's outlined in the job description, then the council would be reimbursing them for that.
Surprised at how brief the policy is, but I guess it's quite straightforward to cover all these. So that was possibly our shortest policy, I think.
My question was
Yeah.
whether or not we allow subsistence claims for people if they're working away, and will that get added in? So say we were sending someone on a course
Mhm.
and they're away for more than so many hours, do we have a rate that they can claim towards their lunch as an example?
There is some guidance in the Green Book, I believe, but I don't think we have anything that's been agreed. I'm not sure of the uptake on that, I guess, with people, I mean, I know
think
that the
we
town clerk goes away.
Yeah, I know when Paul and Jack went away to the conference in at the NEC for the grounds stuff, they claimed lunch, and it was in. I looked up how much they could claim, but I can't remember where that.
In the Green Book,
It must have been,
mostly,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm wondering if we can update it for the next time it comes through, probably just to include that. And it might just be worthwhile. It'd be interesting to note what the Green Book says, because I think I once had to claim for food as a councillor by Somerset Council, and I think my dinner you only have like a £15 rate, and I was in central London.
It's
And I was like, that's fine. I'm very fortunate that I could claim expenses. I'm not moaning at all about that. But I was just going, if people were actually trying to find something for that level,
yeah,
is
where I've worked for a variety of kind of local and national government agencies, and there used to be quite generous subsistence, and then mostly they were phased out,
yeah.
and a lot of offices stopped offering subsistence, particularly for sort of meetings and things where you'd be expected to provide your own. But I think if it's an away,
Like you're going to a
if,
conference.
if you are
yeah.
away with kind of limited options to take your own sandwiches, I think it's quite reasonable. Parliamentary subsistence is a maximum of £25 per day, not including any alcohol. And that's what that's the parliamentary limit. That's for a full day rather than for that covers all 3 meals, should you need to have them. Councillor Furman.
On the last bit under professional membership, do we currently have any employees that we do pay for their, membership to professional bodies outside, within their job description?
Yes. You're going to ask me for a list now.
Well, just a couple of examples, I guess.
Yes, we got, so we, I mean, there's a few now, isn't there? There's finance, I've got some, HR, town clerk. Well,
I don't have any.
There's legal or financial qualifications and sort of professional institutes and so on.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think,
Thank you.
yeah, the health and safety lead may.
I think it's quite fair if it's something that we would expect as a requirement.
And it
for
brings an added
someone in that
bonus
role.
and allows the CPD and stuff, doesn't it?
Marcus is, yeah, do you want to read that?
Yeah, so in the previous policy, it said in meals, if you would be allowed to claim £10 for breakfast, if that's not included in the hotel room rate, if you're away from home on council business, £15 for lunch, £25 for dinner, and a daily allowance of £5 per night for general incidental costs such as Wi-Fi. The maximum amounts above are inclusive of drinks, but alcohol cannot be reclaimed under any circumstances.
That's more generous than parliamentary staff get, even should they be visiting London.
It would be good if we added that in, because I think then we're just being very clear
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
what it is that we're clear.
Yeah.
We'll add that in.
I had a quick question about the eye tests. It's obviously makes it quite clear about costs for the eye test. I can't see that there's any limit on the cost for glasses, but is it purely for lenses, not the frames?
Yeah, it's purely for the lenses. We've just followed the C on that, so whatever, sorry, HSC guidance on that, so we would just refer to that, but it would be for the lenses.
Okay. Did we need to have an actual amendment for the subsistence?
I'm happy to propose the amendment and use the rates that Marcus has read out there, because that seems reasonable, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we can monitor usage and see over the next year what the take up is and what the cost to the council is.
Do we
see
have, we
whether it
have a
needs
separate
adjusting.
budget line for expenses that we see as a cost code, like,
I think there is.
yeah.
Yeah.
2 seconds.
It is for way days and when staff are travelling, which I have to say is not particularly often for most of our staff. Okay. So you're proposing that amendment. I will happily second the amendment. All in favour of that amendment? Thank you very much. And therefore, you know, to propose the actual.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because we've done the
So
amendment.
yes, proposal to accept the policy with the noted amendments that we've just agreed. Councillor Smith Roberts proposing, seconder. Councillor Furman, all in favour? Lovely, thank you very much. Moving on to item 10, senior leaders training and development, and we've got Bryony to give us a report. Thank you, Bryony.
I did a bit of talking and took me out of the hot seat. So this one is just an update from us. So Sarah, who's been doing some training with us, prepared a report in preparation for our peer review that we had last week or the week before. So the report has been attached, but I didn't want to just go through what she'd written. So I'm quite happy to talk to you about what it is that we've been doing. We actually started the sessions with Sarah when I was in my second week, which was back in August, and we were at the Albemarle Centre because we didn't have any meeting rooms at the time. So we've been reflecting very recently on what a journey it's been, and actually the difference between walking into that room as 6 polite strangers to now being where we are, where it feels like we have really grown together. We've got a really nice culture of being able to challenge each other. It has been quite uncomfortable at times, and there's been some boundaries that have been pushed. Some of the content of the training that we've done includes things like coaching, active listening, conflict resolution, or conflict embrace, some of it. And yeah, it's been in a different styles of training as well. So we've done some things as a group of all of the SLT. We've also done action learning sets, which is split into smaller groups, and tried to have the skills to troubleshoot ourselves as well. And some of the feedback that we've had from teams is that they're noticing now that reporting into any member of SLT, it feels very interchangeable, and that we all feel quite on brand with each other, and that we're very consistent in values. If they needed to approach one in another one's absence, that we would be joined up in our approach. I think I can say that we've found quite a safe space. There's quite a few practices that we've adopted into our meetings and agendas that we learned through the training. So we've now have adopted top tips is something that we bring to every meeting. And we also have a grievance section, which is called What's Your Beef? But it generally allows us a space to constructively talk about anything that's tripped us up that we would like to discuss as a group. And I really feel that it's definitely supporting us in our aspirations of being that sort of high support but high challenge kind of working environment. And it's been a real journey, but very, very positive. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sounds like it's been really valuable for you. So that's really good to hear, because I know it was something that we'd identified early on that was needed, and we needed to have kind of development for the leadership team. So that it's good. I'm pleased that it's happened from the start, and I'm just really pleased that it seems like it's been really beneficial. Is there any plan? What are the plans to kind of continue this and develop it further?
That's a good question.
You on the hot seat? Is there? I should rephrase that. Is there a plan? Is there a plan to develop this further?
So we've got our trainer is actually coming back to deliver a session to all staff, which is our February team day. So there are some things that she's been able to teach us as a leadership team that we've identified actually would be really beneficial for everyone to be involved in. So I believe that she's coming to talk to us about time management skill sets, because everyone could benefit from maximising time. And then I'm not entirely sure. I don't think we've got anything lined up specifically with this trainer coming up, as far as I'm aware. but it definitely feels like we've been equipped with the skill set, and a few of us have actually due to hand in assignments for our ILM qualification now, which Sarah's also been working to support us with that as well. So I think the learning has been transferred, and hopefully we as a team will be holding each other accountable and making sure that it stays relevant.
My question slightly stems from something that I'm going through in my work environment, is around coaching and coachee, and around that kind of building people up, but also succession planning. And I know that we're only a very young organisation, but where we've got kind of the different layers, it's about where do we take that knowledge that you've all been given as a senior leadership team to say, how do we bring on some of the other individuals at like the middle management level, even below, either to spot potential or to kind of help us achieve our corporate business plan and what we're looking to achieve as an organisation, and how that kind of all builds into it. So I'm wondering whether this is kind of the start of that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, I would hope so. I think a lot of the, I've said the word too many times now, but a lot of the real big moments for us were the challenge part, and about being comfortable at receiving it, but also giving it. And I think just by being present in our teams when we step away from those sessions, my deputy officer and our relationship has benefited a lot from having that level of confidence and encouraging that level of challenge from him, and definitely looking to impart some of those practices. I think there is definitely merit in, as we move forward and as we develop people in-house, making sure that we're also enabling them with the same opportunities that we've had to develop those skills. But yeah, I definitely feel the impact of it now in the wider teams.
It kind of jumped out at me that in the section on the alignment with CPC recommendations, 2.6, take time out to pause, reflect on the past 12 months and learn from the experience. I'm very aware that this came up when we had the ALC team came in, and that was a question that they asked the chairs, and I'm aware that I don't actually think that we have programmed in as councillors the same kind of time to pause and reflect and regroup and consider what our priorities are. So I'm really, really glad that you've had it, but that has actually jumped out that that's something that we need. We need as councillors. Some of those skills and
so
strategies.
So the bullet points that she's covered off there, like she drafted this to help us prepare for the peer review. So they are all recommendations from peer review.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was one I think that we as a leadership team and internally definitely made a conscious effort to make sure that that reflection had been done, because it's not a natural thing. But I'm not sure how we could support members with.
There's a member training budget, isn't there? I don't know whether that would be a potential benefit in Sarah, perhaps.
I suspect
there is interest with members.
It's going to be one of the recommendations that will come out of the review, is that was something that we kind of realised that was a little bit lacking.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously have the preparation for the town meeting, but that's a kind of a celebration of what we've achieved, but not a reflection in terms of look at what we've achieved and where do we go from there, and kind of planning for that kind of ongoing strategic vision. And I think it would be really useful if we could actually work on something for members.
Sarah's done some work with the LCN chairs, hasn't she? As well?
Yeah, I think it needs to be annual, at around, I don't know whether it needs to be around this time of year or earlier before we look at the budget setting, but it all ties into the process of working out what our strategic vision is and what we want to accomplish, and then what we need to budget for. So working out which, obviously it'd be really good to do something now, but in terms of as an annual process, we might have to look at when that fits into the timetable.
Like
For members, when it would be most useful for us.
And actually, what haven't we achieved this year, and is it what can we do for next year? And what is our buy-in as part of that? What are we individually looking to do?
It might be more of a kind of mid-year, three-quarter year kind of third quarter process to see what needs pushing and then what we need to build in. But that's the kind of discussion for the time. But that jumped out for me as something that we could work on for us.
It's definitely a worthwhile exercise, and it doesn't come naturally, you're right, and it does help to have somebody there sort of forcing that reflection on you.
Yeah, we're quite a big disparate group, So it'll be quite a challenge, I think. But I think as a group of councillors who are essentially are here, you know, for a 4-year period, we need to build in more of that kind of leadership, strategic thinking, training for everybody. Because it doesn't all necessarily come naturally to everybody.
No.
Thank you very much. So I've sent you to note that I'm proposing that we note the report, and thank you, Bryony, for that. Seconded by Councillor Smith-Roberts. All in favour of noting the report. Thank you very much for the feedback. I'm just really, really glad it was worthwhile. Moving on to item 11, the employee wellbeing survey, and that's Bryony again.
It's me again. This is a really nice one to talk about, actually. So I've attached the actual survey results in the format that we had shared them internally, so that you had the full flavour of how they were presented. It was the first one that we'd done. It felt like a good time to do it because it went live for a fortnight period just before Christmas. And essentially what we needed to do was to get that base level health check of where everyone was at, because in preparation for lots of change, lots of ambition coming, we sort of wanted to be able to take the pulse before that to then monitor it. So the plan moving forward will be to complete the exercise twice a year, and that's going to help us identify trends, hopefully get a bit of feedback about how things are feeling or landing with people. There were some decisions around the formatting of it, so we decided that the results were going to be completely shared, so we didn't hold anything back from them. All the metrics are available. We did add some narrative to particular items where we felt it was important to offer direction. There are a few questions that had just raised a couple of concerns, so it was important for us to be able to offer direction to those people. And we also felt that in making sure that results were shared promptly, it promoted our sort of trustworthiness and authenticity with it. We did offer anonymous responses. There was quite a long debate while we were deciding whether or not to do that, because there's risk involved there, but actually ultimately the decision was that it was more important to allow people to be completely honest, and that we would just be brave and accept that we would rather have problems that we know about than problems that we don't know about. So that was the decision. And actually there wasn't anything that came out that was completely shocking. There were a few items, and if you looked at the report, I think the ones that had red narrative to go along with them were probably the ones that were the only causes for concern. So there was one around a small number of staff being unsure about where to access support for mental health. That jumped out as something that we want to make sure that everybody is confident in how to access that. There was another question which was around harassment in the workplace, which again, that was quite concerning to see that there was 2 people reported that they had experienced that harassment, but actually I was given the opportunity to make contact with those 2 individuals, not because I sought them out, but because actually they sought me out after the survey, and it turns out that it was a misunderstanding from the question, and what they meant actually was that in the line of their job they'd had someone shout at them on the phone, or they'd been approached by someone at a public toilet, so it wasn't internal. So the learning from that has been there will be some tweaks to questions just to make them a little bit more clarified for the next time round. But it was overall, it felt like quite a robust, nice level of detail to have, and it will be really interesting to see what it looks like. So it's due to go back out in June, and then hopefully we can start to see some movement one way or the other, and that's when the data will become really interesting, I hope. And the feedback from staff was generally that actually they were really pleased to have been asked a lot of these things. They felt listened to, it felt transparent in the fact that it was reported very openly. And I think it prompted quite a few good conversations as well. So yeah, all in all, worthwhile exercise in the peer review. We're really pleased to see it as well. So you to take any questions.
Smith-Roberts.
I try not to blend personnel with members, but I'm wondering if there's something where Steve could do something similar for councillors, just to get a general feel as to then what it's like here. Does that make sense? But actually this survey I think is just for us to build on that, hopefully it can just keep getting more positive. And the fact that you're addressing things that are cropping up, I like the idea that it can be anonymous. That does give a better sense for people to complete. But actually, if you are able, when people do reach out, that's, you know, good as well.
Be more than happy to supply the templates with Stephen. There might be questions on there that you deem as a group are probably not appropriate, but yeah, we can definitely tweak it and share it.
I thought it looked overall, it's really healthy. There's really good, you know, overall pretty good numbers, and most people are pretty happy. Obviously, there's a couple of questions where I'm assuming 4% equates to a person. 4% or
Question.
there's quite a few where it was 4% of, you know, there's 4% unhappy.
Yeah.
It looked from the numbers that 4% was probably one. I'm just wondering, particularly as the staff body grows, I'm really keen that it is anonymous. I think you get much better feedback when it's anonymous. But whether there's any value in having it divided by team, in that if there is a pattern, if those 2, 3, 4 people who have a slightly more negative response are in a particular team, then it might be, you know, you might pick up a pattern potentially, and it might be one particular area that actually has, you know, something that needs addressing. Councillor Furman.
I can see the logic of that, but I'd also put the counter that can in some ways kind of create a divided workforce that makes it seem that their own department is only looking after their own department and not working as a full council team.
The point.
I wonder if there's a way just of drilling down so that actually you can do it, because I think in the employee surveys in my workplace, which is anonymous, they can drill down by department, but also like length of service and level, and then you can kind of do, like, I know we're obviously smaller than that, but you can give a kind of overview based on that.
Yeah, I'm less on the drilling down, particularly in smaller organisations, from someone who was in a role where it would have been incredibly obvious which person it was, because it was quite niche. So yeah, in terms of sort of job level or whatever, that's too easy identifiable.
But whether it's just team,
if it was literally just those silos, and whether that level is something that maybe wasn't shared, I don't know whether that would impact the transparency.
It was something, so we discussed it at the time, and actually it was felt, so it was considered, and actually we felt like that would have been a compromise against the anonymous nature of it, because we were quite a small team still at that point, and people might have felt that if they could distinguish you down to a group of 4, it wouldn't be so much of a leap. But having said that, by the time that we come to revisit this in June, we will be a larger organisation, and therefore it might be at that time that this doesn't feel like such a compromise. So that
if you do it by
if it's literally in those is it four main silos, you've got sort of 15-20 people as a minimum really per block. I'm just wondering whether if there is a trend with, and it may be don't do it for the next one, but if there is a persistent small core, and if they're then coming to you afterwards and saying, I'm the person that said something negative, then you can address that. But
so I think that was the main concern with going anonymous, was that we might miss safeguarding opportunities. And I did have that gut punch reaction when we saw about the harassment question, because you suddenly go, oh, I don't know who they are, and how can I go and make sure that they're okay? But it's a weighed up risk, isn't it? Being anonymous, and luckily we were able to provide that narrative that would direct people to the right place. So I think my biggest worry about the outcome of the survey is that, being a data person, you're always looking at the direction of travel. So if we've started up here, I'm a little bit worried that any sort of direction now is possibly going to be a negative one, but we'll have to see.
And I appreciate from a stats perspective, you don't want to mess with the format too much, otherwise it's hard to compare like for like. So I agree, minor tweaks, but maybe don't have a major overhaul. But maybe it's something we need to think about if there is if there's an opportunity to spot problem areas, actually. But overall, it looks like there aren't any major red flags, which is fantastic. Very good. So we need to officially note the update from Bryony. I'd like to propose that we note the update. I'll propose it myself this time. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lees, all in favour of noting that update? Thank you very much. And we want to item 12, which is the access to information motion to exclude the press and the public. I think I am duty bound to read out the ridiculously long.
You have to read it from the recommendation bit if you.
So the recommendation is hidden, it's not in bold.
It's a
Discuss.
thing.
No, the recommendation is the second half. No, that's fine. So the recommendation that under section 100A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the items of business, agenda items 13 and 14, on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3, respectively, part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act, namely information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. This is to potentially do that. So, Councillor Furman,
I propose.
I'll second.
Councillor Lee seconding, all in favour? Agreed. Thank you very much. And as we are talking about the staff structure and organisation, I propose that we do go into closed session now. I think we should do that. That's